an hour of it out of us not even us hearing what's going on. Yes, finally. Well, I mean, bring Cody on, man. So you hear us now, right? Fuck yes. Oh boy, we gotta start all over. Yeah, I hear myself talking. Fantastic. I love a plan when it goes in the plan, huh? Like when a plan works out. Two of the things that will be illegal later on: the vaping and then the cigar. Thanks to our dumb president. Okay. Do we might have to start this over again or what? Okay. Yeah. Okay. What was the first question you? What was the first thing you asked me earlier? No, it's not American. There's nothing American about that because it says in the Constitution itself, all men are created equal. You know, if you look through our history, there was not only just white settlers, but there was other like African traders who were trading goods and services and also slaves to settlers. So no, it wasn't only a white version, a white ethno state. That's completely ridiculous. Because if our founding fathers put down and said, "Hey, we want all men created equal," because some of our founding fathers were completely against slavery, some were not, and the idea of classism was something that some of the founding fathers didn't like. Of you know, not getting along or not seeing somebody as equal because they're poorer than you or less fortunate. And also, you also look at this right here. You look through history. Slavery has been around ever since the longest period of time. The word slavery is Slavic for servant. And you look at the Middle East. That was like the Middle East had slavery for the longest time, and was actually 10 times worse than the Americans' slavery. And it's completely un-American when they think that way. It's completely narcissistic, and that's why I don't like the alt right because I see them no different from the alt left. They're a negative stereotype of the other far black balloons. You know. Hey, how's it going, Cody?
Hey, how's it going?
All right, buddy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Talking for a okay, you look at that's completely redundant and dumb because there's several different cultures. It wasn't just the English who got here. It was the French. It was the Spaniards. It was the Italians. A lot of people settled besides besides white Europeans. First off, and we had different type of tribes. I mean, we came here because we were not a Christian nation. Welcome, we were rebelling against the Queen. The Queen wanted to control and force other people way they want to learn or listen or what their interpretations of God was. So you got people who are in the founding fathers. Ben Franklin was a person who was part of the Hellfire Club. I mean, he was literally like Anton LaVey. You got, you had George Washington, who was Episcopalian Christian. They would have been both been persecuted by the English Church. I agree with you because I mean, us trying to get along as one whole world is fairly nearly impossible. And see how the UN acts and the UN what they protect their business is not really is more authoritarian. It's more authority and more of like to the point they're trying to put us into war with other countries with false flags, especially with what happened with Syria with the white helmet. And I think when you have Alex Jones, when you have people who are in the Conservative Party saying, "Look, we agree with a globalism. We're completely we're not worried about our country first." That's the whole letter in the first place. And I don't know why the far left thinks that is a supposed dog whistle. I don't want to be controlled by a not just by a government by itself or my local government, but a globalized government. That's a bit scary, you know. What's your opinion, Nicole? He's still fixing his camera. My one videos about Antifa. Yeah. Yeah, there's some politicians. There's some local and actually federal politician, like one of them's AOC in the squad that were actually paying the bail money for Antifa after the Straight Pride Parade was funding bail money. And also kind of noticed from everyone's lips because you got people from California, you got people from Oregon, you got New York and Pittsburgh. The Antifa riots, you notice the same kind of people in the same kind of situation in totally different states. Who's shipping them back and forth to all these other states after 2 or 3 weeks? Not only that, I mean, these tech companies, mainstream media is always defending Antifa, even when they're, especially when they're in the wrong, when they're being up and harassing people on the streets. And the main reason why these tech companies and these, news organizations are supporting their violence because it causes more division. It causes more division. It causes more money in the pocket. It causes more conflict. Exactly. They want to label Gavin McInnes as a racist. or apologize for Watson as a racist, and they're completely not racist. They're kind of simply conservative, and they want to punish like Dave Rubin. Then people like you are downgrading our videos, and I think what it is causes conflict, and it causes more conflict, and it brings more fuel to the fire of the culture war of division, and it makes them money. When there's more, when there's more drama, there's more division, and they support that. And also you think about it, a lot of these, Google, they're, you know, they can just sell out any time to China or the Middle East and leave us in the dirt. So I mean, very companies in this fuck is up. We can't do nothing about it. And the Chinese the Chinese government problem. Some of these far leftists and these politicians, even Beto O'Rourke, is actually calling for a ban of all AR-15s and AK-47s, and he's actually even talking about Chinese. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, the major issue that we have right now with China is we are in a cold war with them because of the Chinese trade deal. Obama office, he let them buy up land in California and over in the east side of America. Same thing with Trump at first, and then Trump started pushing back on him after Yahweh hacked into the UN, hacked into the CIA and the FBI. Now we're in a cold war because of that, the Chinese trade war. Uh, when the Obama administration let literally let the U.S. military killed and massacred half of 1,000 people from their farms, and because of the Chinese government bought those lands underneath those farmers. Well, almost every dictatorship in history tried to globalize. Hitler tried to globalize. The communism tried to globalize. Uh, Napoleon tried to globalize. They wanted a one world government. They weren't nationalist at all. They were a pluralistic form of. I mean, yeah, to a certain degree, they were kind of. Yeah, and yeah, I think there's a big difference between that. You have to have countries agree with each other and try to compromise with each other, but at the same time, a whole global government, it to me, globalism in a peaceful sense is it's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Because other countries don't get along with each other, or doesn't want to compromise. They have to make their own treaties by themselves. You know. Look at Occupy Wall Street. That was a big example of it. I mean, the Trump administration, how people voted for Trump and rebelled against uh, political correctness was also part of it as well. Nobody likes being told what to do, regardless of what it is, regardless if it was your next door neighbor or your government. That's why exactly. And you have these politicians from the right or left.
Same. I think it's same with like the 1980s and 1990s. Like back in the 80s, or in the 70s, like you had the punk movement and
Yep.
goth, and then you had the counterculture of the 90s. Because during the 80s, you had Reagan and all this other stuff going on.
Yeah, you know how like goth rock, heavy metal, punk rock, and we're the Filthy 15. Remember, like trying to silence music, and then you got over in England, Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious were getting arrested because they made a song called "God Save the Queen," being sarcastic. And now England's arresting people for making jokes about Nazi pugs. You know, well,
Yeah,
I,
when I first came on, there was no audio, so yeah, I was like, what's going on?
I, the first thing I brought up was my female friend is going through some stuff, and she lives in London, England right now. She lives in England, a small town in England. Her father died not too long ago, and I messaged her and said, "Are you okay? Is your father okay?" And her name is Kellyanne Tabasco. She sometimes watches our stuff, and she's a streamer. She does a lot of gaming stuff, and my heart goes out to her, man. I prayed to her, man. Her father has passed recently, and it's that's the first thing I said. That's the memory. I feel bad for her right now. You know, it's cool, man. I should have brought it up in the beginning, and I pray for her, man, because it's like her father was going through cancer treatment for a long period of time, and she just messaged me this morning after a hangover. Father died, and I hope she makes it out of it, man, because I mean she had too many deaths in her family, you know.
I think that would be un-American because America was founded for the purpose for everyone to live here.
Good answer.
No matter, Well, yeah, there was dictators in ancient times, like Dion of Syracuse in Italy. Like I was reading about Plato one time, and Dion was going to sentence him to death, but Plato escaped and went back to Athens. Yeah, that's where my name is from.
Not
It means it means good fame. Yeah, they were Germanic tribes. Yeah. Yeah, the Greeks were the ones that came in contact with the Celts. And then the Romans, they came in contact with the Germans, the Germanic peoples. Well, no, it's not.
Chris, I have a question for you. Cody, Cody, my bad. I was talking to Jinks earlier about this. That I feel like that Marxism ideas and socialist ideas. There's two types of people in the world. There's two types of people who follow that. There's people who really have good intentions, and there's people who are self entitled intentions, which is a bad thing. I mean, you look at the alt right, who because they're nationalist socialists, they think they're self entitled because of their skin color, and you got people who are on the far left who feel like they're self entitled because they feel like they're oppressed. Does Marxism, with the whole idea of Marxism or socialism, do you think that the idea of self entitlement could be taken advantage of and could be a detriment on society?
Uh, what was the question?
That I don't know if you're a socialist or a Marxist or not, but I feel like there's two types of people who are Marxists. And I don't know. Did you hear me the first time, or is just you didn't know what the question was?
Oh, I was just looking up the uh, the word for homosexuality. Like there was an ancient Greek word that was used for something like that, like homosexuals, but uh, it was kinaidos, like it means catamite or loud loud fellow, something like that. It
Right.
was probably used for like homosexuals or something like that.
What I was saying is
But
that I don't know if you're a Marxist or not, or follow Marxism, but it's just like two types of people who are Marxist. There's people who mean well, and there's people who are self entitled or want to use it for their own self gratification of blessing. Then you got the far right who thinks that they're nationalist socialists, who are the alt right, who see everything by race, but they feel like they're self entitled because of their race. And you got the far left who feel like they're self entitled because they feel like they're a victim, supposedly, and they feel like I demand this, ergo I of I need more government overhaul for socialism. Do you think socialism can be detrimental against a society that can crumble apart or actually be horrible, or there's ways that you could do it that could be not as a way that doesn't encourage self entitlement?
I think that I think that socialism can work, but only in mixed economies.
But well, there's some countries that are market economies, which is market economies are kind of built under uh, more, well, it seems kind of funny that in Germany they still have some of Hitler's socialist programs like childcare, healthcare. Um, I don't think Germany gives away free cars anymore, but that was one thing he gave away Volkswagens to every household. You're looking kind of blurry, Jinx.
Your camera's on drugs.
I'm more drawn to libertarianism because I don't give a care what kind of drugs you do, or I think we should legalize marijuana. I think we should legalize prostitution because I mean it's more of a market out there. As long as it's regulated to the point that nobody gets hurt,
Did
you
you
know.
did you talk in the stream? Did you talk about the 6 deaths of like the vaping like that was recently on the news?
Yeah, I mentioned that. Yeah.
Well, well, they what I heard on the news that they want to ban the flavored vape and just keep the vape with the nicotine is what they want to do.
I doesn't make
Pretty
doesn't make.
much. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I was watching the Steven Crowder video, and he even said that getting rid of vapors and getting rid of cigars is a bad idea. You can't call yourself or a liberal, or you can't call yourself a libertarian if you're for a ban on things. You know, I just don't know why Trump's falling for that bullshit. I really don't.
Trump falls for everything.
Yeah,
Trump
that's
falls for everything. Like he says, climate change is a Chinese hoax. Uh, her, 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 Hurricane Dorian, like
yeah.
he said he wanted to nuke the hurricane to make it go away.
I think the funny thing is, I was watching Tim Pool, and a scientist actually said that that could be a possibility, but that could be. They said there's like a 50-50 chance that would have been like that would actually made it worse.
A lot of people would have gotten sick over radiation and would have died.
Exactly. So that would have been a bad idea. Even the scientist said like it could happen, but people could die off of it, but we don't know. So it what the scientist said. I was watching Tim Pool, and it was
That's
actually a video of the scientist
nu-
saying it. They
Nuking a hurricane is like launching a tank rocket into a tornado.
yeah. what he was what they were describing was the scientist was bringing up the fact that the wind patterns would have got disrupted by the blast. That could be a possibility, but at the same time, it could be actually end up worse because somebody might end up died, or like it would have been end up literally like Ryoshima again. So I mean, the possibility of actually working, it could be 50-50 chance. It's not even worth it. It's not even worth it to do that. You know. It would be detrimental and it'd be more people dead. You know, even 50-50 chances would be a terrible idea by itself. And also with the vaping, I mean, people are dumb enough to make their own make their own vape machines and accidentally fuck up on the machine, and it was blowing up on their face and fucking them up or killing them. So I mean, it's not the vaping company's fault. It's that individual's fault. Decide to make something a contraption by themselves to basically hurt themselves. They're not an expert by of engineering. Exactly. I mean, I kind of agree with you on that because I mean, it's especially with gun deaths. I mean, that Walmart's trying to get rid of. Well, I mean, blunt objects, knives kill more people, cars kill more people, yeah, sugary snacks kill more people, and you can buy all that stuff from Walmart. Uh, gun violence doesn't, you know, gun violence. Yeah, it's there's some deaths behind it, but comparison to just driving your car and texting, that's a lot more. You know.
McDonald's kills people. McDonald's literally sells you cancer.
Well, gun for hunting, self defense, target shooting. I mean, there's different uses besides, uh, or even a shooting at all. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it. The whole Second Amendment and gun rights is not just the firearm itself. It's actually based on a ideology which creates discipline.
Yeah, like when the internet first came out, like I heard this from Amp Lemon's video about like when he was talking about like some stuff about like the about memes and everything and how they evolved. And you know, back when memes first came out, they were only used for like communication, but then when normies took over, with modern day memes, they only last about like a week. And like when the internet first came out, it was mainly outsiders, and the normies had their own media, the outsiders had their own media, and then the normies came and normified everything. Yeah.
And also, the thing is,
In this would never that shit would never happen in 90s internet. No, no, I meant like SJWs or like people getting their feelings hurt or some shit. Like that's what I was saying. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of crazy shit in chat rooms.
well, also the thing is, everything is amplified. I mean, people who act rude online are completely different people in person. I mean, I knew this one girl, man. She
That
she photo edited,
that's a
she
lot of that's a lot
photoshopped,
of people online.
yeah. And then when I finally met her in person, completely the opposite, and she acted like she didn't know me. I'm like, okay, And I don't think we have a major issue. I don't think it's. I think the whole culture war is mainly highly exaggerated. You know.
Yeah.
I Clothes and thing behind it. I think mostly it's just overhyped, and I don't like the idea of today of McCarthyism. We're too busy calling each other Nazis instead of just listening to each other and then claiming everything's a fucking dog whistle. And on my video, I was complaining about that. I got tired of the right calling Barack Obama a terrorist and saying he's dog whistling to all the terrorists, and then all these SJW was like, oh my god, he's dog whistling to the alt-right nationalists and the white nationalists. And I'm like, where did where did these people get a platform with their mass hysteria and complete ignorance? And I think one of the major issue is squeaky wheel gets the grease. You always have the nut bars gets more attention. Mm, yeah. Well, these major corporations don't like the idea of competition. You look at a Blockbuster. That's what their fear is, man. That's what they don't like. They exactly, and that's why they support communism. That's why they support extreme Marxism. That's why they support. They hate independent businesses because they see it as a threat in 10 years or 5 years from now. They see it as a a way to that we might have to shut down business if they get a hold of something a little bit more better. I mean, you think about it, it's healthy competition. There's nothing wrong with that. Companies don't see that. There's some people who are CEOs don't see that. Walmart, believe it or not, lowered their prices a whole lot more when Amazon started competing with them. But if Walmart had an opportunity to shut down their business, they would have by government means. And guess what? There's no healthy economy. There's no healthy back and forth, and there's no lower prices. You really want a life that you have. There's only one place that you can buy your own stuff. There's only one place you can buy all the stuff, and everything's overpriced. It doesn't really work that way. It shouldn't work that way. Exactly. Laziness. Nihilism. I've seen that video recently that you had. I was listening to when I was working. That nihilism is not anarchy, but it's close to anarchy. In libertarianism, my philosophy is I don't care what you do as long as you're not interfering or impeaching on my rights. I don't give a fuck. And, yeah, and that's and that guy could never answer my questions right. I mean, I asked him so many times because he believed in this supposed communist anarchy and that whole having the tribalist, uh, you know, cliques and tribes that he's talking about. That sounds kind of like Jonestown almost. How's that ever a way that would ever work out? It would, yeah, and it never really worked out. In my society, I realize in my perfect world, it's not perfect, and you have to realize it's just a fucking pipe dream. The reality is, there's still fucking people out there who are pieces of shit. That's the reality. Yeah, oh, to realize that to the point that it looks like a real life stream because Cody's here, and man, having a third person into it is awesome. I have a question, Cody. What do you see yourself as politically and religiously or philosophy wise?
Um, Philosophy wise, I look into like Platonism and all of the things that Plato taught. I actually have the book right behind my phone here, and and it's been a while since I read it, but he Plato talked about the immortality of the soul, the metaphysics, his theory of forms, and the theory of the good, and the allegory of the cave, concepts like that. Well, well, Plato in his Republic, he 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 favors aristocracy. And Socrates hated democracy because he thought that democracy could never work because the people are not educated enough.
Well, a republic is. I think
Well,
we have a democracy and a republic. I think we have
well,
local.
that's just the title of his book, Republic. One of his, at least one of his dialogues is called the Republic. Yeah, yeah, that was where he was talking about his five regimes and what the ideal society would be for for people to live under. And Plato favors aristocracy, which that's yeah, that's why I think well, I mean that's why I said like 1984 is not realistic in any way.
I, we're there. I think we're heading in there soon, especially the Chinese uh, getting a hold of our government. Not only that, are buying their way through politicians and companies, and credit the social credit. It's like the Black Mirror almost. It's becoming scarier and scarier and scarier and more authoritarian. And I'm afraid that people who are on the far left, who are the social justice warriors, will ask for that. You know? Yeah, I do agree on that. But I mean, like Carl Tuckerson said, it's like a gym full of them, of redneck inbred hicks who are very small minorities of just backwards thinking people. It's not very much of them, but you're talking about people who are in control of. I mean, look at AOC, look at the Squad, look at the people who own Fox Media, the VOX, that Fox, CNN, all these mainstream, all these news organizations that are extremely woke. Uh, they can control a narrative better. They have more outreach. You know.
Yeah, I align myself with traditional liberalism. So I would think, yeah, yeah, that would like translate to like I think you could call ancient Greek democracy traditional democracy or French democracy.
When you cut off King Louis's head off, right? Guillotine, old fashioned, right? Well, yeah, I mean, they cut off the head
Yeah,
of the king just to get a democracy. So
yeah, and then after the democracy fell, it went back to like uh, a kingdom, and then they reestablished a republic after that. At least I think that's how it went.
and then I'm one of these guys that in philosophy, I don't give a care what you do. I live. I don't know if my political viewpoint is. It's kind of like Alistair Crowley's or Anton LaVey's philosophy almost. Do what you will, but hurt none. You have a right to believe what you want to believe in, as long as you're not forcing it down my throat. I'm good. I have a right to have guns and pot and uh, you know do whatever I want with my body as free will. But if you're not hurting anybody, if you're not interfering with anybody else's life, why does it even matter? Like if you want to go out and shoot up fucking crack, that's your lifestyle. I don't agree with it, but that's your life. You know, that's not. Well, I mean, the only thing that is not libertarian about me is the whole border wall or immigration thing. Because I think immigration is a major issue because we're dealing with people with overpopulation, and also we have a welfare state that I've argued with other libertarians about this as well. A welfare state that basically just gives out handouts, and then everybody loves free stuff, regardless who you are. They're coming for that as well. Not only that, you got drug cartels, you got um, people that we don't know who they are come to our country. We don't know their background. We don't know if they're sexual predators. And people who come over here illegally, some are great people, some are fantastic people, some are the opposite. You know, regardless where you're at, and regardless how much you can run, your problems will always run with you. And I learned that the hard way. Promise me.
Yeah, and on society, like I was having a conversation um with one of my Facebook friends, and he says that he thinks that if society is broken, that it should be destroyed and a new one should arise from it. And I'm like, no, we should try to reform society because that would be way much easier than trying to destroy a society and then trying to build a new one from scratch, you know?
Not the
Yeah.
fact it would suck. The fact is, our American founding fathers did the exact same thing, and they had to make the Constitution, had to establish rules, and you're talking about centuries on centuries on centuries and centuries of coming back where we are now. And guess what? As human beings, we're still not satisfied with our government.
No. Yeah, that's what I keep trying to tell my best friend, but he says that oh, the universe is a cosmic joke. We're not living in the greatest times in history. We're living in the worst times because, because he believes in like the futuristic of like science. Like he says modern science is like primitive, and it's like, yeah, but we don't really have advanced cybernetics or spaceships to go into space yet, or what have you. I mean, we have what we have, and that's as good as it gets. Yeah, because
I mean,
yeah, because medicine is better.
look at this right here. I look at the issue between the 1920s with tuberculosis. There is a hospital in Louisville, Kentucky called Waverly Hills Penitentiary. People died in the hundreds from tuberculosis every fucking day. The place is completely fucking haunted. It's creepy, and it has a stain. It has a stain on
Could be.
the world. But you get my point. There's proof of their that we are better now than we were back in the 1920s with tuberculosis. Tuberculosis. I can't say it right. I said
Tuberculosis. Yeah,
me.
I'm from the north in the Midwest.
kind of yes, like California almost, but the way you talked about and you
Well,
described to me, it was completely the opposite. So I learned a lot from you, Jinx.
yeah, the the pigeons or or whatever it's called.
Combination of Italian and Jewish slang. That's like northern Brooklyn accent, you know. Because, I mean, Jinx, well, by hey, Jinx,
Well, I
arm like that.
mean, like,
Hey Jinx, raise your arm like that.
well, I
So
mean,
screenshot that.
to the Canadians, we're all like Southerners. A boot, a boot.
I catch myself saying, I ain't there yet, or shit, or motherfucker sometimes, and you notice it very rarely that I do come off very southern. Y'all, y'all, yeah. I catch myself saying that, and I don't mean to say. I'm not.
I,
There's sometimes I try not to sound redneck, but
I,
sometimes I kept sounding redneck on accident, especially
I
when I'm
say
mad.
you all or you got
Y'all,
you all, you guys.
you guys.
All you. It's something. Yeah, yeah. But I thought that was. I, it's nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Doing. Going. Hating. They see me rolling. They hating.
For watching. Exactly, and then every cop will just stop you for any reason why.
Well,
It's 56
well,
stop
even
you. But
well, I mean, there are like some mergers, like the cotton merger, and the wine and wine merger. So yeah, I mean, English is changing like all the time.
oh,
Like like I say caught. I, I say caught, not caught. Like I got caught. I don't say that.
caught,
Caught.
got caught. but it's a dialect.
Yeah, they call cars a lorry, and actually, actually I think lorries are like trucks or something, and and they say bloody to like the average American. They like ask you, they like ask, why is that person bloody or why is it bloody?
Well, I mean, when we say wall, they say walls, walls, like more than one, like wolves with no with like with the S, but with no A to it.
Or they drop the R in like some certain words, like porn. In like some dialects of English, it's pawn. I'm gonna go watch some pawn. I'm gonna go to the pawn shop.
I don't wonder why they think we're stupid. You know, the one thing I like is that fucking females with the English accent. It's like fucking sexy, especially like London, England. Fuck. And there's some cute guys that have some cute accents also, but over in like what part of England? I don't remember. I was talking to one girl from England. Her accent was so strong, it was hard for me to understand her. I had to say what several times. Yeah, Newcastle, and she like it's real thick, and they're really sarcastic, and then it takes you a while to figure out. Oh, okay then. Really, if they're sarcastic to you, they're actually trying to be nice to you. You know, it's just it's Cockney because she told me it's like I have a Cockney accent, and oh, it's like okay, it's hard to understand. Um, and then it was a girl named Jay that had a Cockney accent, and then Kelly that I told you about going through some problems. She has a really British, very British accent. Uh, like I said, when you say wall, she says walls, and then what kind of word? It's more of a like it's more kind of like she lives in a small town, but her accent sounds more big city British almost. You know. The one thing I don't get is that you told me one time they literally think I think one of your friends like Chick Megan was thinking that uh say that he literally thought black people like majority of black people were mentally handicapped, and I'm like no, that's not a factor. And I brought up the school analogy that every time you went to school that when like you go to the special ed classes like the mentally handicapped classes, there's only like four of them, and you talk about a high school full of like 5,000, and then majority of the people in that mentally who are mentally handicapped, about all of them, almost all of them, were white. I met two, but like I
I
said,
hardly ever see black people, period.
but but like I
I
said,
live in
it's
Wisconsin.
like Canada over there almost.
Yeah,
But what I but
cheese.
what I was saying is that I did the whole analogy like you go to every classroom, which is like 20 fucking classrooms. There's like about 30 to 40. people like average intelligence, and you go to special ed classes, like people who have concentrating reading, like I am. You're talking about 18, right? You go to the mentally handicapped classes. You're talking about 6 or 5. So
Yeah,
that analogy
like
is the dumbest analogy in the world.
yeah, it's like uh I went to special ed classes my whole life, and there was only like and by the time I got in high school, there was only one black kid that was mentally handicapped.
No, exactly. And then I was, and also you think about it, that was it. Dices Clay, that black neurologist. He's really smart. Even the guy who made the spokesperson of Pakistan, he is a person from, I think, South Africa who came to the United States. The guy is a fucking genius. This guy went to college 6 fucking times for psychology, for political science, for all these other things, 6 times. And this guy controls and sells merchandise for Pakistan. You know what I'm talking about, right? The was it big? His name was Big something. I forgot his character's name was, but he's the spokesperson for Pakistan, and he has all these degrees, and he's from South America. That's why I asked Chick Mick, and the same guy who makes memes with the libertarians, and you're claiming that
Chicken
majority.
nugget.
Jinx, why do you call him? No. Well, that's fine. I
What
just
a,
don't.
what about what about that other neo-Nazi that was like the one that you posted on your Facebook
I
a few days ago?
fucking.
So what what is epigenetics?
Well, that still doesn't make any sense. It only
Yeah,
applies
I
to a gender dysphoria
yeah,
or.
I never heard of that before. Epigenetics.
That's only a 1%.
Okay.
Nothing to do about you being gay or not. It doesn't matter. I mean, talk about epigenetics. You're talking about somebody who would have PTSD or freaking gender dysphoria, which again, that's only count as 1% of the of psychology. Or well, trying to explain. Also, the one thing I don't get is trying to explain to basic biology to the far left, and then trying to explain global warming to the far right and see what happens. I started. I couldn't. laughing at that shit. I just saw that. I'm like, this must be a troll. This guy's fucking with you. He's not being serious. He's just trolling you, man. And I was like, if he's really serious, he's one dumb motherfucker. It, well, it was kind of funny that I have a cousin. When he was a little kid, he would pick up his sister's dolls and play with them instead of the boy toys. And there was a few times he got in trouble for putting dresses on that it was her sister's. But when he got older, instead of playing with Barbie dolls, he started going out to the real thing. If you know what I'm talking about. Exactly. This guy's a socialist. Then he has to question Hitler's hobbies because he had lots of hobbies. And you talk about hobbies. He played golf. He was always into arts and crafts. The guy was a vegan. That's completely dumb. I, well, I mean, I went to high school with a guy who he was straight as hell, but the way he talked, he acted really feminine, and people thought he was gay, and like literally there was guys and girls who would try to hook them up with like other guys. They're like, wait a minute, guys, I'm not really gay. I'm like, I'm really straight. Uh, and he ended up. The funny thing is, I found out later on he actually ended up married to a woman, and he actually has a really nice job now. But he still acts very flamboyantly gay. Well, that's the thing is you talk about this guy who claims that it could be a detrimental of the human race. That doesn't make any fucking sense because the LGBT community is only count as like 1% of the population or like even 3%. Majority is, you know, yeah, exactly. I think what the
Yeah.
major mental, I think the major problem with the mental of society, it has to be lack of people who are willing to have children. That's one. Financial support. and um,
Yeah. And, well,
well,
the story of Moses was just basically copied, basically based on the Canaanite king Sargon of Akkad, because Sargon of Akkad's story is pretty much the origin of the Moses story. The previous the, or the previous Canaanite religion that was polytheistic. Mhm.
but also, you mentioned about the seven, the Ten Commandments, right? That were taken. Were if you look at the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, that they're actually from the actually book from the same books of the dead. So
Yeah,
it was around.
yeah. It's
Well,
almost identical. Yeah,
but also I think Moses adopted a lot of their philosophy. A lot of their teachings and the philosophy. So he probably adopted other. Oh,
yeah. Un yeah.
that,
Unlike Moses, Sargon of Akkad actually existed. Yeah, the the because there's never a record of them. There was never a mass of
well,
Israelites in Egypt
uh,
because the story of Exodus never really happened.
well, it's hard to even tell because how you know that Moses was Sargon of Akkad? I mean, different interpretations. Because you think about it, look at
Uh,
the Bible, David Goliath. Because David Goliath, the story of David Goliath was actually a spiritual cross between actually five different religions.
well, yeah, yeah, yeah. The Soma was used by the Vedic peoples, the people who would become the Indians, and the Indo-Iranians. They're connected linguistically and culturally, but they later split, and Soma was is similar to the Iranian word Hauma or something like that. It's something like that in either Avestan or in Old Persian. Yeah, yeah, um, yeah.
Also
Or
with
Spartacus and his army, for example. I mean, Spartacus himself wasn't crucified, but his army was. His army was crucified in a line from Capua to Rome, and they were left on the bodies for days until their body rotted off the cross as a warning, like if you rebel against the Republic, this is what will happen to you.
well, it's not the fact
Yeah, same with
that
like
this happened or doesn't even happen. That is just, it happened in ancient times. It happened such a long time ago. It was hard to prove anything like that. How are you gonna prove Medusa turning people into stone? Yeah, explain.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The but the first monotheistic religion was Atenism in Egypt. It didn't really last long because after Akhenaten died, his religion basically died with him because the Egyptian people did not like the monotheistic worship of the sun. So then it reverted back to the original polytheistic religion. I think they did, yeah.
Well, also, I mean, the Egyptians knew how to preserve bodies a whole lot more better compared to people who lived in the desert in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of horrible right now. The Egyptians, what's going on in Egyptian now? A lot of these Middle Eastern cults, I would say, Muslims over there are trying to destroy a lot of these old ancient pyramids. Something that is sacred and not only just sacred, but just a thing of history that can look back in the past. To be perfectly honest with you, during the this is a point I want to bring up. Uh, During the war of Iraq, the French government was trying to, separate themselves from the United States government and say, look, we are against your war, but yet the French legions over in South Africa were taking over villages and the Congo and doing the exact same thing that the United States was doing to the Iraq War. And the main reason
Uh,
why I think the main reason why the Catholic Church is doing it, I don't know if they're actually doing it now. You know why? Because they're nosy busybodies. Uh, and I think that's fucked up. Not the fact that I think it's pretty fucked up. It's the fact is, ever since we got this new pope, he's been sticking his nose into every little aspect of politics. And I think it's kind of irritating and try and tell what people how they should live their life. And then you got other people in the Catholic Church rebelling against it and saying, "Look, we don't want to bend the knee to your ideology." I really think that they're lobbyists. They could be paid for. You know, it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't because the Bush administration are basically globalists, and not only that, I mean, they shouldn't. The best way I can describe it is the fact is that they're lobbyists. The Catholic Church and the Vatican actually, believe it or not, you think about it, owns a lot of resources and money where they're at. Exactly. So they off a politician, they just bend over backwards. You know, I mean, why do you think the why do you think well they have lobbyists who are part of Hamas or Hezbollah or Syria? And why do you think they have lobbyists who are Saudi Arabian? Well, I mean, the best way I can describe it is that okay, somebody was being sarcastic and says, "Hey, I'm drinking a cup of water. Hitler drank a cup of water. Doesn't mean we were the same thing." I mean,
Yeah,
I get what I get.
yeah, it's basically the logic of like, oh, society drinks water, a serial killer drinks water, therefore we should ban water.
Yep. Well, like I said, I mean, just because the alt right, if I agree with something with the alt right, or just because we kind of have the same, yeah, I understand why they think that. Just because I agree with them on something like that doesn't mean anything. I mean, the neo Nazis are socialists. These far left liberals are socialists. Doesn't mean they're the same thing, right? Mhm.
Yeah, and and you also have the fundamentalist Christians that want to take over this country and make a theocracy.
Yeah.
So all of these authoritarian people of different ideologies are all going to fight one another over control of who gets what.
And this okay, Jinx, just because okay, you're a leftist. I agree with you on some things, and we talked plenty of times. We agree on some, right? And just because I agree with a few things with Richard Spencer doesn't mean anything. That means we might have something in common. That means we might have somewhat of a bipartisan agreement on some things. It doesn't make anything. No, I know you're not. And on that video that I mentioned about the leader of the Antifa movement over in New York City was upset because Bernie Sanders and Carl Tuckerson agreed on, I think it was on one thing, on one policy, and I'm like, well, okay, they're now finding something that it they have a mutual agreement on. That's something beautiful. I have heard that it does. Not only that, he's against, um, you know, he's against personalized health insurance. He doesn't like personalized health insurance companies. He wants everything federalized, socialist health insurance companies. So he's going to piss off a lot of workers' unions off for trying to propose that. Privatize health insurance. You know, it's like saying it's like saying if Bernie Sanders was in power, it says, look, UPS and FedEx, you're no longer in business anymore. The federal mailing office should be the thing. A lot of it's
Yeah,
kind of like
population control like mean anything, really.
I mean anything. Well, also you think about it, the Chinese had a policy, a one-child policy, so that can mean that as well. You know, and then you got also you got a was it I forgot his name was Beto York was mentioning a buyback program like they did in Australia, taking away our guns away by force, and they call it a buyback program. You know, buyback my ass. And when he was running for governor for Texas, he was saying, "Oh, I'm okay with firearms. I'm okay with AR-15s and AK-47s." And then he turns around and says completely the opposite of that when he was running for federal office as president. And I know you guys are not like are gun nuts or pro Second Amendment rights, but I mean you have to admit that's slightly a bit scary.
I like guns. I shot a few guns at the gun range.
It's something I have to really look into, and I would asking those kind of questions. He's not giving a huge blanket answer besides just agreeing with the crowd or just playing to the crowd. He probably, you know, I mean, he's a person who is very far into global warming, uh, hyposteria, or hyperbolic. No, I remember we had a discussion one time that veganism would be a bad idea. It's a dumb idea, Jinx. Remember?
Veganism is also not healthy either.
You know?
Yeah,
And the only way they can
and
make iron is they just
and
eat things from a.
and I mean the evidence is clear because there's less vegan YouTubers.
You know,
I'm pretty sure Vegan Gains is still making videos, but I'm not too sure about other vegan YouTubers.
that's the one thing I don't get. That they think drinking milk is a bad thing. I'm like, well, that's not exactly. I mean, you have to milk a cow just just to because if you don't milk a cow, they'd be in extreme pain and they would be in pain all the time unless you milk him. You know, it's like holding. Oh, great. That's sad. Let me guess, she's a far left libertarian. Am I right? Well, okay, they went around
Yeah,
claims.
yeah. There's like I shared this on my page on my Facebook, and there's going to be this new uh birth control pill for males that's going to be coming out.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Uh, Jinx, it's kind of hard for me to believe that, and the only reason why I say it's kind of hard for me to believe that we went through the whole 90s and 80s with condoms and birth control, and you're telling me we have higher populations now?
Well, back back in the 80s and 90s, we only had like what, 5, 6 billion people, and then it hit 7 billion in like 2011, something like that.
The reason why I'm questioning the numbers because if that was the case, then China, fair enough. I give you that. Never mind. I was about to say the
What
American population probably would be like a lot less right now compared to in the past because of birth control. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we have lots of wildlife, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I Yeah, yeah, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Ohio. These three states are pretty much just all corn and farmland.
Well, don't
I
forget
know because I live
Red
in
River
Wisconsin and
Gorge
it's
in
all
Kentucky.
farmland and it's just boring here.
Yep. Red River Gorge over in Nicholasville, Kentucky, or Berea, Kentucky, is the Rocky Mountains. Oh my God! Like there's you can get lost there. You can get. Oh yeah.
Appalachians.
See, I always wanted to live in Japan. I heard the nightlife was actually very like Tokyo, Japan. I heard the nightlife is actually pretty fantastic. I was watching a documentary about Nick Mondo, the deathmatch wrestler. After he got done with his wrestling career, he just hid and hide in Japan, Tokyo, Japan, the rest of his life. Well, I have a question, Jinx. Why do you think that all these far left politicians agree with open borders for a reason? They're trying to bring in multiple people. I think.
Not, not to mention like all the ideologies fighting each other in America in you know in the U.S. Yeah,
It wouldn't work
yeah,
out. I mean, it would be a holy war. It'd be a holy war, and it would not be a good thing at all. It would be a hell on earth. But
right.
well,
Yeah, because yeah, yeah, because the monotheists will interpret the war as the coming of the end times and Armageddon, and I'm over here questioning why does the end of the world take place in this backwater country of this small country known as Judea or Israel?
I mean, you got people saying they own that piece of land for the longest time.
Well, yeah, all three of them say they
Title
own
to
it.
it. Several people say they own it.
Yeah,
It was given to me. It's, it's not even just that. It's just when you are willing to compromise or trying to sit at the table and say, "Look, you can stay here. I don't care," and then all of a sudden, fucking, they try to blow each other up after that. You know,
hmm
I say Pakistan is not a good roommate. It's not a good roommate.
Well, I was gonna watch it, but I think I forgot about it. Yeah,
Faith is you have faith in something that's not there. You feel it. You feel like emotional connection to it. Uh, it's hard to prove anything that is not worldly. You know. Yeah. Well, Well, I mean, you can live your life in a very religious sense without killing anybody. I mean, there's people who
Yeah,
kill each other
like
over just
yeah, like
to
me,
sense.
like I have a religion and I don't want to go out and kill people.
Exactly. I think most people don't. I think of all the Muslims I bumped into, I grew up in high school with, that I used to play football with, they don't want to do that either. But I guarantee you, you go out in the Middle Eastern country with no Wi-Fi, a bunch of rocks and just dirt, you find something crazy. You know,
Well, so, well, if they don't have Wi-Fi, then how is ISIS be able to like upload videos up to
they
like
find,
YouTube or whatever?
yeah, they find something eventually. They just have to find this. It's harder for them, harder than them finding. But you get my point. I mean, like I said, I think it's extremism. It's the worldview that the West is so evil and so bad, we have to overthrow it. Ergo, these Marxist teachers throwing this down our throat. Ergo, we have to destroy this world, and they get brainwashed in this ideology of radical Islam, and
Well,
it goes to Christianity as well.
yeah.
You look at okay, these
Or Zoroastrianism. Yeah, if that
anything.
because that yeah.
Well, but you look at the history of Israel before Israel was a actually an independent state. Israel was actually were considered as as just as violent as jihadism as well, and always started in war with each other back in the 1940s and 1920s. And then also the Nazis wanted to overthrow the Israeli state, so they were in constant war with each other, regardless of anything else. It's because of the government. It has nothing to do about the people; it's the government. Same thing with Palestine. Uh, well, I mean, when you go from like, hey, I want to fight for women's rights, women don't need to be locked up because they're lesbian, from oh, we're mad at men because we're manspreading, then you're dealing with mentally ill people by this time, you know, who have daddy issues or haven't been fucked for a while. So
Wouldn't
yeah,
you wouldn't you guys agree that feminism is pretty much outdated because because women have the rights that they want, the right to vote and everything else that feminism in the 20s and 30s that we're fighting for.
I would say yes and no. I mean, in the United States, I mean, women have the same rights as anybody else. But you talk about the Middle East and China, and you talk about in Russia, I think
Hmm.
feminism there more in actual countries that our women are oppressed.
Especially
The
with
United States and Western
especially with
the opposite.
women in Saudi Arabia recently getting the right to drive now without a guardian, quote
And,
guardian.
and now it just seems like when you have third wave feminism in the United States and Western world, now we have men's rights groups pushing back. because of massive divorce. Not only divorce, depression, alcohol, and I agree. Because in men's society, they considered masculinity as toxic or evil or oppressive, and really it's the opposite. Masculinity is what attracts women. You know, as masculinity is you
Your
I think
camera is high again.
I think that's part of it, but also you're talking about. I mean, the mentality of 1940s World War II of men going out and fighting for the women and children. It's more of an honor and respect kind of thing of being a man. That was more manly back in the day. Now it's completely the opposite. We have women in combat with us, so it that whole honor and respect of just men fighting out there only is still there.
Even
Out there,
even in like Israel, there's a ton of female combatants in the Israeli army.
exactly. Even the Soviet Union back in the 1940s were taking on the Nazis. Uh, they had women snipers. So I mean, this whole no, I don't think it's
No,
no, and I think society kind of does that. What happened? But I think in society we see men as the dominant force out there, but not realizing that men are can be just as weak as anybody else. Not the fact differently, we're not as emotional. We have this.
yeah,
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that.
yeah, the incel movement.
That's the one thing I don't get it from themselves. I was watching a documentary about the incel community. Some of these guys, I'm not joking with you. Some of these guys were not that bad looking. It's just they have a insecurity problem. They don't have enough bravery to go out there and try to talk to women. I'm an ugly son of a bitch. I will give you that. I'm fat and short. I try to
I
flirt with women. I have enough courage to go to people, talk to them.
as as for me, I never really thought of myself as ugly or attractive. I was never really uh had any opinions on my looks or anything. I just didn't really care. I still don't.
Yeah. I mean, of all the women I've tried to go out with, it, they're like way out of my league. I want to be perfectly honest with you. I'm surprised I was dating these chicks sometimes, and I try. You just go out and try. At the most, you might get embarrassed, but hey, it's like going on a bike. You just fall off and get back on it again. You know, be persistent.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's a little bit more different than that because women tend to watch romantic movies and soap operas, and guys are tending to watch action films. I think they're hardwired a little differently. Yes, men can be emotional as much. I know it's a oversimplification, but just listen to me about this. I'm just saying, okay, what happened if I drop my food on the ground? I get pissed and yell, "Fuck, shit!" Get something else. Women, not all of them, that happens to them. They kind of get really sad and emotional and be like, "Oh, I wanted that." I think guys can handle stress a lot more better compared to women, but men can still get emotional and suicidal as well. And like you said, if they're not connected with somebody and mating with somebody, they're more suicidal. I can see that. No. Mhm. Well, No. Well, even with the whole evolution thing, I mean, some people would actually say that there would be a good argument for the nuclear family. That is not going by the table in the first place. I mean, the problem is that we have a society that glorifies cheating more often compared to something like that. But at the same time, I do get your point. I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect society, and a nuclear family is not always perfect. You know? You know why? Restriction. I mean, when you're restricted as to a partner, you tend to be most likely to cheat on somebody. Lack of trust and lack of communication. You know. Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, to be honest with you, I think it's shame on either way because if your wife cheats on you, it's shameful. If you're stay with her, it's just as shameful. And leave the relationship is shameful as well. So either way, it's still pretty shameful. Well, you talked about the differences between pipe dream utopias and then reality between those two. I mean, the nuclear family is not a utopian society. It's not. There's lots of flaws into it. I even willing to admit, even though I am free market capitalism, there's some shitty things about capitalism that I don't like. But it's the sad reality. Even libertarianism, you got people who are gluttonous who end up killing themselves while they're gluttony. The same reality. We're a lot more better off free than restricted. So people make their own terrible choices on their own. Exactly. there's nothing wrong with self discipline and self control. I mean, for the longest time, for 5 years when I was with Jonica, I resisted fucking like other women, and I had choices. Promise me, I had choices. And I mean, choices. Very libertarian viewpoint, instead of just, oh yeah, I mean the word libertarian, the idea of libertarianism was from the hippie generation of just self-independent, business owners who were a bunch of pot smoking businessmen. Yeah. Well, that's the question, James. What happened that hippie said, "Hey, look, those blueberries and those strawberries, I like to sell them." That's that's why I say libertarianism. I like going to farmers market, man. It's fucking awesome. That's where I get my pot and my food at. Come on, Cody, you've been to a farmers market. Don't lie to me.
Um, yeah, I've been to a farmer's market lots of times, and we have a garden out there, and we tend to cook our own food and like make our own food. Every once in a while, we'll go to like you know a restaurant or whatever, but the important thing is like you should cook your own food. Uh, I think that I think that the social constructs are just that, just social constructs. Like you said in one of your videos, like with like females, like society says that females have long hair, men have short hair, and it's like, well, that's sexist. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, I know for the longest time
and
when I was in high school, they had uh, people. I know stereotypically I want to call them the preps, but they would say a real man wears a pink shirt. It's like where a real man wears a pink shirt because he's not shaving himself, and then I thought that was the most dumbest, ignorant thing I ever heard in my lifetime. Like that's the
yeah,
most dumbest. But
yeah,
then
like
I thinking about it. I started thinking about it. And I'm like, really? I'm like, they're kind of right. I mean, why is people saying pink is a feminine or a female color? I don't really understand that. Okay. So I probably think about it. And you that's why we call it guy lighter instead, Jinx. Hence why that women are a lot more bigger or not as good looking when they're take birth after that. I want to say like yeah. It's true. I mean,
I,
you know,
I
go
was
ahead,
going to
Cody.
say like I identify more with colors than with numbers because I'm not good with numbers because I'm not really good at math.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I was kind of looking through it. These men rights activists were saying men are more suicidal because of lack of intimacy, feeling alone. That's why a lot of people are just scared of divorce because a lot of men end up homeless after divorce. And I was watching Tim Pool one time, and when he was younger, he was homeless, and I've been through this myself. Every time he was trying to go for a job in a restaurant, the manager always said, "Look, we're not hiring men. We're trying to hire women because women who are gets more older men to the restaurants to spend their money. We don't need male waiters, and it's harder to when you're a young 18-year-old male. It's harder for you to try and find a job than anybody else. A woman can find herself a job because they have more sex appeal. So when I was younger, I had trouble finding a job. When I was 19 years old, I was homeless on the streets when I was living in Tennessee, and the possibility of trying to find myself any kind of form of job was just a dishwasher. Yeah, it is. And now I get your point. We're we're disposable because we have nothing to offer unless we have wealth or we have establishment.
Well, yeah.
I have heartbroken. I got emotional and punched the wall. Yes, I did and cried.
I I will I will admit that I am more emotional. I think I feel more feminine than I do masculine.
Well, will admit when I was going through divorce with me and Jonica, I thought about committing suicide a few times before when I was younger. I did thought about I punched the wall so many times. I was really emotional. I was crying all the time. I was upset. I didn't trust her. She didn't trust me. I didn't want to. I didn't want to look at her in the face after the shit she has put me through. And I mean, it still hurts to this day, man. It really does. Uh, you told me about him. Tell me about your father, man. That's horrible, sad. I really don't think so. I think, well, I think there's a big difference between going through divorce or losing your son or getting your heart broken. That's completely different because I mean, you listen to any Robert Smith from the Cure album. I mean, that's pretty much life in general. But what they're talking about, and I think what they mean what talking about is just even going through stress, even going through hardship, you just have to stay strong. You have to keep your head up. You got to keep on going forward because you're by yourself. You're a soldier by yourself, and you're running because you have to have a willpower to keep going forward. I will. That's true. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I know Jack. It, yes, I do agree. I think it's other people call it toxic masculinity. I call it lack of masculinity because they're so insecure about themselves. But okay, but there's a difference between me and Cody and you. There's a difference between that and the democratical socialist who threw a hissy fit because people are whispering. Yes, the video I sent you. The video I sent you. Yes, there's a difference between human beings even if you're masculine, you still have emotions regardless. But the difference between there's a there's a difference between me, you, and everybody else. We have enough guts to say yes, we have emotions. There's a difference between that and somebody acting like a child who hasn't really grown up, who hasn't really been through a actual struggle, who are not actually men.
I'm I'm living in my parent basement.
I mean, okay, I'll give you an example. Cowboys. They listen to country music. They're very emotional, but they try to assume masculinity by being a rough and tough cowboy like Johnny Cash. But yet they write love songs about how they got their heart broken by this woman in Dallas. No, he did. I'm just saying, masculinity is not about emotion. It's looking in the face of a tough time and trying to deal with it and trying to overcome it. That's masculinity. Well, it's I think it's just more than that. I really think so. I think is
I,
I think is
I
having
think I think it's more than that, but I tend to identify more with femininity than I do masculinity.
and there's nothing wrong with that. That's cool. No.
Yeah.
Well, when somebody calls me, if somebody says, "Oh, you're not a man. I'm more of a man than you are," I'd start laughing at them. It's like, dude, you have never walked in my shoes. You never felt the pain I ever felt. You never been through the same shit I've been through. You have no talk. I think people who do that are just really insecure about themselves if they have to call out other people's masculinity out. Trying to, yes, yeah, the practical socialist. Oh, the left W's. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like the one person in drag, like, one point of privilege. I'm so upset and I'm so triggered because somebody uses gender language, and I'm like, you're a grown ass man who has a beard and all hairy with a dress, and you're more worried about gendered language. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cody, have you seen this video before? I mean, you will laugh your ass off.
I haven't seen it, no.
You gotta see it. You fucking gotta see it. Jinx, can you pull it up for me, man? Damn it. But you gotta watch it sometime. It looks like a parody, but it's not a parody. It's actual real life. People cannot stand, like, this is how bad it is that they get upset by whispering or talking or clapping hands, and then, like, if somebody's uh
Or,
the
or
only way they
I don't even get why people are annoyed with sounds like my sister-in-law is like that. Whenever I make like fart sounds or whatever, she's like, "Stop doing that. I don't like that."
like, I would literally walk into that place with noisemakers and kazoos and wear my MAGA hat and scream my head off. Be like, make America great again! Just fuck with them and see their reaction. Oh god. Well, I mean, but you get my point that there's a difference between masculinity and somebody who hasn't grown up. I mean, you can still feel emotions to be masculine. I think the negative stereotype or the oh, definitely, yeah. But you know, well, how about a philosophy perspective? Because I talked about gun rights being not only a physical right, but it's also a philosophy kind of right. Well, oh, that's definitely right. But when you when you try and talk to these people who are on the alt right, there's different interpretations of the alt right. Am I right? There's a different interpretations of eugenics. Go ahead. Well, what I was saying is masculinity, the philosophy behind it. There's different interpretations of it, man. I mean, I consider somebody as masculine as a person who works constantly, saves up money for his kids, take care of his wife. And if his wife wants to work, that's fine. I'm not one of these guys that women need to stay in the kitchen. I'm not that kind of person. But I think a man, in philosophy wise, it's not. It doesn't. He doesn't have to have a big truck to show his masculinity. No, I wouldn't say that. I definitely agree with that. But the thing is, I think women cannot. I'm not saying all, but I think cannot handle the stress of a work environment compared to men by biological standards. I mean, men can handle stress a lot more better. I mean, You look at the cave era. Men were always going out hunting, gathering, and hunting down, behemoths. And you but this, oh yeah, the same thing. Well, there's been a few times that I almost tried to fight somebody, and okay, but you get my point that I think guys are most likely compared to women. There's a few occasions. There's a few occasions that some women can handle stress more compared to most guys. But like I said, I think we're genetically more apt to stress. I will agree with that because in Google, I think they did a survey recently about the Google employees. Women actually get paid more in Google compared to men because men are not as good at multitasking compared to women in the tech company. Even though there's not very much women in the tech company compared to men, women actually outperform most men because of their skills with multitasking and other details. I can see your
You're a
point.
millennial, aren't you? You're a millennial, aren't you?
I'm 30 years old, and Jinx is how old again? You look young for your age. I'm not even a
Well,
millennial.
isn't the millennial age from like 1984 to like 1999 or something like that?
I'm
No, I thought you
19.
were born in like 1985 for some reason.
I'm 1989 generation Y. I don't. I looked that up. I looked that up on Google. Well, also Generation Z is going to be the next generation is coming. That's going to be
Gener
more.
Generation Z, I think, is gonna be from like 2000, like post 9/11 to now, I think. Yeah.
This one album, that would be it.
I was born at the end of 1994, and I grew up in like the late 90s and early 2000s. So then in my early teenage years, that's about when the PS3 and HD came out. So pretty much my kid years was pretty much like of like all of the technology
Okay.
of the technology of like standard definition stuff.
Well, when I was a kid, it was PlayStation 1 and Walkmans.
Yeah, the PlayStation 1 was my first console.
Nice. My first, you know what my first console was a Sega, was a old school Sega, the black with the it's the Super Sega. I don't remember. It had Sonic and Street Fighter and Streets of Rage. Okay, like this.
I can't even see it because it's all like, oh, now I see it.
Nice cassette tapes. I remember those. I remember those. My mom used to have a cassette player in the car. I'm not gonna say
VHS
anything.
tapes. Yeah,
VA. I remember.
I had a lot of VHS tapes.
You know, I still have CDs and I still have some
Yeah,
VHS.
I still collect CDs, and I don't think I'll ever stop collecting CDs because I just don't prefer downloading music
I do both.
because yeah, that's why I convert all of my audio files to like Windows audio file to where it's like a it's like a lossless uh quality of the track. WMA. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I like vinyl. I wish I was walking through Walmart not too long ago, and they actually are bringing back. I swear, like being a hipster in 2019 is fun. It's fun. They actually had record players, vintage, old school, uh, retro record players. And I started looking, like, holy shit, you guys are selling record players now? I was like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I got some vinyl. The vinyl player I actually have is like a combination of like radio, vinyl, CD, and cassette.
Nice.
It's basically modeled after like a 1950s style radio, pretty much.
My grandmother used to have that, and I got vinyl, but I don't have a. I don't. I have a few vinyls from The Cure and then
I
uh,
I
Depeche
don't
Mode.
have a whole lot of I don't have a whole lot of vinyls. I just have like three vinyls. I can show you them.
But I don't got a record player anymore. long have we been on this live stream? How long have we been on this live stream? Oh man, because my battery is about to die. Shit. I have it hooked up on the chart. I can't barely see it. Christian Death. Fuck yes. Ross Williams. Oh, great. I used to have a Billy Idol album. I lost it.
New Order.
The Smiths, other than Mission UK, and then you got New Order. Love hey, Blue Monday is one of my favorite songs. Find my shit.
Church. And
Yeah,
I have this both. I have this both on CD and vinyl.
Nice.
Susie
I got Susan Manches. I can't find my my vinyl shit. Hey, if I find it later on, I want to take a picture of it and send it to you guys. Okay.
And I was also looking on Amazon that Susie and the Banshees is re-releasing their vinyl,
Nice.
their stuff on vinyl.
I know in Hot Topics they flow for 16 children. Hell yeah. 26 years.
Yeah,
I didn't see it. I don't know. I think they should bring back. I think they should bring back vinyl. Nice. Nice. Yep. Oh, guess what? Since Trump had that Step Forward Act, that Prison Reform Step Forward Act, guess what? Guess who owns me? Guess who owns me that one? Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah. I thought that was funny, and I'm like, nah. But the Step Forward Act was. It wasn't the. It's not what I exactly what I wanted, but it was still a compromise, which like not like non-drug violent non-drug violent offenses would half of their sentence would be cut in half, so they would actually have more of a chance of getting out of prison earlier, giving housing and giving a good amount of money to start out with a better newer life, basically. Oh, okay. Before we leave from that, what's your predictions? Nice. Okay, Jinx, what's your predictions on the 2020 election? Who do you think is going to win the Democratic? I hate to say it, I think Biden. I'm not a fan of Biden, but I think Biden was going to hit. Yeah, he's going to get it. What do you think, Cody?
I I think it should. I think it should be Bernie Sanders.
Right. Andrew Yang, man, he it's something funny about that guy, man. He like right in the middle of the debate. It's like, promise me, I know a lot of doctors. I'm Asian. Like, what the fuck? He just said that. I was completely high and drunk when I was listening to the debates, and I'm like, wait a minute, did he actually say that, or I'm just really fucking baked? Dude, man, I gotta take a bath and relax, and I think we should do another live stream, but make sure the audio is on. I mean, you can edit it through YouTube. You know that, right? Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I was going I was gonna say like if you're going to edit the like if you're gonna edit out the part that doesn't have audio. I was wondering if you were gonna crop that out.
You guys have a good night. I gotta get some sleep.
Yeah, I need sleep too.
It should be like never ending story. Oh my god.